Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube and, of course, on our Facebook page, which is the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And as always, you can follow us on X at the Real Captain Lou. We invite you to follow us there. And, of course, as always, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Captain Lou Sports Network. You get all of our great programming live and archived, our extravagant few minutes episodes, which air about 3 to 4 times a week. We've got more of those coming up a little bit later on in the year. We've got some exciting news coming up soon. We'll be able to share that probably, I would say, in the next month or so. We're going to expand our programming a little bit. And so I can't wait to share that all with you. But again, follow us and subscribe to our channel, which is the Captain Lou Sports Network. And of course, the ACHA Power Play Season 10 rolling along. The road to St. Louis and the national championships. We got a lot of Michigan teams that are gearing towards that, and it's a lot of fun for those of you that have never been down there. We get 84 teams in 5 divisions, 3 men and 2 women, all come together. It's like a level below the NCAA hockey, technically club hockey, but anyways, our podcast is going strong in our 10th year for that. We'll have another show live next Tuesday night. We got a great lineup for that as well. A reminder before we get going too, that tonight's show is brought to you as always by the official secondary market of the Captain Lou Sports Network, and that is SeatGeek. Use the promo code Captain Lou and you get $20 off of your purchase. It's that simple. If there's a game you want to go to this weekend, of course, the big one, Super Bowl 60. I know it's expensive if you're going to be in Santa Clara, but hey, $20 is $20. So use the promo code Captain Lou and you can get $20 off your purchase. Red Wings, Tigers are going to start spring training here. Pistons, both the Red Wings and the Pistons. Yeah, the Red Wings after the Olympic break, but the Pistons still going strong. The Kings of the East right now in the NBA Eastern Conference. So use the promo code Captain Lou and you get $20 off your purchase. We got a great show planned here tonight. Really excited to bring these two fellows on. They are from Michigan Sports and Entertainment on Facebook. You got to follow the Facebook page. They have some of our shows on there as well, some of our extravagant few minutes episodes. So let's bring them in. Dan Murphy and the coach, Brian Barnes. They've got all kinds of great content on there as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But fellas, welcome to the show. How's everything going? You getting ready for the big game this coming Sunday?
Yeah, man. Thanks. It's a pleasure to meet you. We're big fans of yours, Captain Lou. And yeah, nothing like Super Bowl Sunday. You know, it's kind of the, to me, signifies, right, the end of a great football season. And then you gear up for spring training. And I'm a race fan, so the Daytona 500's right there as well. And then obviously playoff hockey and all that good stuff that comes with it. So no doubt about it.
Yeah, Lou, thanks for having us on, man. Really appreciate it. And yeah, this week's always a little bittersweet. You know, we get ready for the Super Bowl. It's the biggest game of the year, but it's also the end of football season. So it's also always a little depressing at that as well. But with the Super Bowl coming, it's always an exciting time.
Oh, I know. And it's weird. My wife and I were talking about this earlier today that we can't really get into college basketball. We watched the game Friday night, and those that know me know that the game came out on the good end for me. But I just can't get into college basketball till March 1st. And so, yeah, it's going to leave a void for a little while. But what we're going to talk about tonight, fellas, is we're going to talk about the Lions first. As Dan mentioned, a disappointing end. You know, we thought maybe the Lions, this could be their stage this year after especially being 15-2 last year. And we're going to talk the Super Bowl and maybe talk a little Tigers as spring training is upon us already. You'd never know by looking outside. We're about a week and a half before pitchers and catchers report. So let's dive into it. Dan, I'm going to start with you with the Lions. Obviously, not what we wanted. I think it was a letdown for everybody. For those of us that have been following, for me especially, I'm a little older than you guys, have been following them for, about 55 years or so. You know, it's still nice to see them relevant, but just my first question to you, Dan, is how much do you blame really on the injuries or just maybe bad luck?
I think it's a combination of everything. I think everybody tries to pinpoint it on one thing or try to pinpoint it on one coach or the coordinator's leaving. I think it's a combination of it all. But the one that I look back on where it kind of really all started was when Frank Ragnow announced his retirement. I mean, he's the captain of that offensive line, the center. I mean, everything centered around him. And when he left after the draft, after free agency, it really left a void in that team that they never really were able to fill. They bounced some different guys around to the center position, and it never really panned out. They never really settled on one group to handle that offensive line. And this team is, since day one, is centered around their offensive line. It all goes back to them. And when they struggle, the team struggles. And that's what we saw this year more than anything.
Brian, and I think Detroit suffered a little bit by losing both coordinators. And I think it was much more of an adjustment as it turned out. John Morton wasn't the answer for Detroit. How much in your eyes did that play a part in it?
There's always going to be a transition period when you bring in somebody else, and the terminology is different. And making sure what John Morton does or your new coordinators align with what the head coach wants. And obviously, we saw that Dan Campbell and the Lions brass were pretty quick at the end of the year to make a change. And it was obvious it wasn't working. And then obviously it wasn't working during the season when Dan Campbell took over play calling duties as well. And so that's an unfortunate part. And I agree pretty much with everything that Dan said, with the injuries and the Frank Ragnow drama and situation like that. And so, on some of our conversations that Dan and I have had before with guests, I'm not a Jared Goff hater, but I do believe it is a quarterback-driven league, and you see right now the two guys that are in the Super Bowl, are they the elite of the elite? Maybe not, but they're playing at an extremely high level, and you need that in the NFL to be successful. And so when Jared Goff isn't playing at a high level for whatever reason, for whether it be pass protection or injuries or whatever, it's a concern of mine. And so, it's disappointing. I think what it did, and I've mentioned this before too, it magnifies how close they were before. Like you mentioned, they were a 15-win team the year before, and they were, 17-point second half lead in San Francisco the year before that, right? And it just, at this level, you only get so many chances before things start to change. I mean, look what finally happened in Buffalo, right? Things like, I'm not calling for Dan Campbell's head. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you only get so many shots at it before it's time to start over again. And are the Lions, like Dan and I have talked, like their roster is still outstanding. They've got really good football players on their team. It just, they're getting to that point. It's getting really close.
And Lou, if I can jump in real quick, because I always have to be a Jared Goff defender, even though he's definitely not my style of quarterback. I prefer a quarterback that's a little bit more mobile, but I always feel like I'm stuck in this position, whether it's with Brian or some of my buddies. I always got to be a Jared Goff defender, but I'm going to be a Jared Goff defender right here and say, I mean, he played at a top 5 level at the quarterback position this season, despite everything that was going on around him, despite how many times he was hit and under pressure. And I thought he did, as the season went along, I thought he started to adapt a little bit better. I thought he started to step up in the pocket and move around in the pocket and make some plays where maybe he hasn't in the past, that out of just necessity. And I thought this was actually one of his better years of his career. And I thought he played at a tremendously high level. It was other things that are around him that crumbled that affected this season. But I just refuse to put the blame on Jared Goff. And I see so many people do that, and it frustrates me.
Well, guys, I think one of the biggest weaknesses I saw, and I'm going to go back to coaching, and I think what I mean by that is it seemed to me in the last quarter of the season, especially, it was a glaring weakness, the second half adjustments that the other teams seemed to be able to make to Detroit, and Detroit not being able to counter. I've never seen a team have a third quarter inefficiency like the Lions had in the last 3 to 4 games. And I think that really was a turning point. I mean, they were lucky they didn't lose to Chicago because they were able to come back. I don't know if that was just, I don't know what that was all about, if that was coaching, but to me it was. And I think that's something that Detroit can work on in the offseason, but I just see some of these mental lapses Detroit had in the second half really, to me, was a turning point.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. And, there's a lot of layers to that. Like, I've talked to a lot of coaches at different levels of football. Like, sometimes it's hard to like, simulate that. Like, I don't know, like, hey, start practice. Like, okay, guys, it's the first, we're starting, it's the third quarter, right? When we go to total team right here, right? Sometimes that's hard to do. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know the answer. But you're not wrong there. I think where coaching stood out to me, and I know Dan gets bothered by this, and we could have the Jared Goff debate right now, but we won't. I'm not saying he can't, but the coaching part, like, to me, the three most important games of the year, like really the two in particular, you're home against Pittsburgh and you're at Minnesota, and they just laid an egg.
Oh
And
my God.
injuries are not, right, Lou? Man, like when you talk about Dan Campbell and the culture and being ready to play, like they look great week 18 against Chicago, but it didn't mean anything. And I know people feel good about it, and hey, they looked great, and hey, that they gave the Bears another loss and we swept them. But at the end of the day, that, like, the previous 2 weeks are what bothered me the most. And is that fair to put on Dan Campbell completely? I mean, no, these guys are professionals, right? But for somebody who claims like to be the culture guy and buying into that, and everybody loves them, like, holy heck, they just did not look great those 2 games.
Oh, that Minnesota game, to your point, Coach, that just I remember that being Christmas night. I had to drive back from my daughter and son-in-law's house because I had to work the next day. Listening to it on the radio, you could hear in the voice of Dan Miller how disappointed he was. And it's been a lot of years since we've heard that. And it's just, that's the exasperating thing. And Dan, I think you'll agree. It's just when a team is better than Pittsburgh, better than Minnesota, that just really just, oh my God, I just get frustrated thinking about it.
Well, the Christmas game was incredibly frustrating because some of the players that, the top players, the captains at St. Brown and Sewell had come out that week or even previously to that week and basically said how they were frustrated and disappointed that they had to play on Christmas.
Yeah.
So you're already going into the game thinking, okay, your top players have already been vocal of the fact that they don't even want to play. And you're coming off of a 3-day turnaround after getting your hearts ripped out against Pittsburgh. And you got to turn around and go to Minnesota and play a game that your top players have already said they don't want to play in. And you're thinking, okay, these guys don't want to be here, and they showed it. And that's the first time under Dan Campbell's regime where I felt like the team just did not show up. Absolutely, from the top down, they absolutely did not show up. They said they didn't want to play, and they showed that they didn't want to play. And that might have been the most frustrating game and the most concerning game because, and that goes back to culture. Like this whole culture was built on grit and toughness, and we'll play you anywhere. It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter if the game, technically means anything or doesn't mean anything. We're going to come out and play, and we're going to play our best. And that was the first time that I saw where they really did not show up.
Well, now we've got a new offensive coordinator. Coach, I'm going to ask you first. Drew Penzing, I like the signing. I think he did a lot in Arizona with nothing. Murray at quarterback to me is an enigma. A guy that's unmotivated as a professional quarterback. To me, he looks indifferent out there, and I think that he did a lot with him. I love the signing. 2 questions: do you think that it was a good signing for the Lions? And 2, is this something that may keep David Montgomery around, or do you think his days are numbered in Detroit?
Yeah, that second one's a great question. I'm going to take that one first because, Dan and I talked ad nauseum about like our personal preference. Like, we're Mike McDaniel fans, and I just liked his style of, like, let's backtrack. There's a lot of ways you can win in the National Football League, right? A lot of different schemes and philosophies and whatnot. And personal preference, big fan of Mike McDaniel and what he did with motions and things about, the way he got Waddle and Tyreek Hill the ball when he was healthy, made Tua Tagovailoa a fairly competent quarterback. That was fun to watch. And I thought with the Lions personnel, he would have been a perfect fit. That being said, though, Dan Campbell's, mindset, going back to it, the grit, and like Dan talked about earlier, the offensive line and running the football, they just hired a guy who's a big 1-back, 2 tight end guy, 12 personnel, likes to run the football, believes in his tight ends. And so that to me fits what Dan Campbell wants, and it fits the personnel, like you mentioned, the David Montgomery, because we had talked a lot about David Montgomery's role and how it seemed limited, especially as the year went on, and what are they going to do with them. And so to me, this fits like him to a T. And what it does do as well, if you're going to go back to your roots and like, hey, we're going to rely on running the football more than anything. What it does is that does alleviate some pressure from your quarterback. Like when you're able to continue to run the football, it alleviates that pressure from your quarterback. So I think it's a decent fit for David Montgomery. Will it be a good hire? Like anything, I think time will tell. I think it says it's going to be really interesting now what they do in free agency and then in the draft. Okay, like what they're going to do, especially like we know there are holes in the offensive line. I think it's apparent and obvious, like that's a position they're going to hit really hard during those two phases of the offseason.
Dan, give me your views on Petzing. And then also my next question to you, I'll tie it in. Coach mentioned it, free agency. Now that they've got Petzing, who do you think they're going to go after in free agency as a top priority?
Well, when they originally got Petzing, I was a little bit disappointed just because, like Brian and I talked about, we really wanted Daniel or just somebody with some experience and some, proven track record of success as a play caller at the NFL level. And, so I was a little bit disappointed because McDaniel was still out there. But then you start looking at it, you start researching it a little bit, and you saw what he was able to do with James Conner for his couple of years and what they were able to do with that run game. And, he's a really, really smart guy, really innovative with his run schemes. I thought, okay, I like that. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about it after I did some research. And then they go out and get Mike Kafka, who's the interim coach with the New York Giants, was the offensive coordinator before he became the head coach there. And that when they brought him in, I'm like, okay, now now you're really got a little bit more of a combo where Kafka's going to handle a little bit more of the passing game. Petzing's going to be the play caller, but handle more of the run game. Now you got a good combo. I feel pretty good about where they're at in terms of play calling, in terms of where they're at with the offensive coordinator position. And we saw what Kafka could do with the Giants offense when they came here to Ford Field and almost put up 500 yards on the Lions defense. So he can do some things. So I feel pretty good about where they're at from a coaching perspective. And you talk about free agency. I think it all goes. It's going to depend on what Taylor Decker does. If he decides to retire, then you're opening up a tackle position and the center position are spots that need to be filled. So you can't do all that with the draft, and you don't want that many rookies starting the offensive line in a Super Bowl bust type season. So I think they're definitely free agency is going to be, they got to go out and get some offensive line.
Well, guys, too, I agree with that 100%. But here's another thing. We've got, Brad Holmes has done great, in my opinion, with getting guys signed to extensions. But now we've got 4 of them on the horizon. 2 this year, I think, maybe, and 2 next year. The big ones, I think, this year, you've got, obviously, you've got Gibbs coming up, but he's a first-round pick. You can give him his 5th-year extension. But the ones that I'm keeping an eye on, I'm interested to see what they do with, is going to be Laporta and with Brian Branch. I think they need to be signed sooner rather than later. He's going to have to juggle it, Brad Holmes, as far as with the free agency. Coach, what do you think with the free agency with our own guys? How do you feel about the extensions, first of all?
Yeah, I'm with you. That's one of the issues you have when you get good, right? Is you got to find a way to keep your own guys, and all good organizations, battle that. And you're right, they're going to have to make decisions because I don't think they're going to be able to keep them all. We obviously saw we were a little surprised the Jamison Williams extension happened already. That surprised me a little bit. But if you think about it, again, there are a lot of ways to win games. But if you look at simply value, and what like pretty much all elite teams have, they have like an awesome safety, right? And that to me is going to take precedent over Laporta or just about anybody else. Gibbs obviously, like his explosiveness, like to me, those 2 are the most important guys re-signing. I'd put them ahead of, pretty much anybody they have coming up.
Dan, I was surprised. I wasn't surprised. I was pleasantly surprised at how well Campbell played this year. He turns out to be a great pick for the Lions. And that's one guy I don't want to see the Lions lose. We need to keep him as a linebacker. I mean, it's just, to me, a vital part of that defense.
Well, I go back, we were talking about Branch and Laporta. They're both coming off pretty major injuries.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part because with Branch, he's coming off an Achilles tear, man. And for a guy in the secondary to come off an Achilles tear, and the way he plays and what makes him special is his explosiveness. And is he going to be as explosive coming off an Achilles injury? But then you got to tie that in. Like Kirby Joseph's they signed him long term.
Yeah.
And you don't know what he's going to be with that knee injury. So like it's a tough deal right now. I don't think either one gets extended this off season. I think it's got to be a wait and see how they come back off of these injuries. Because last thing you want to do is, let's say you give Branch an extension and he's just not the player that he used to be. The same thing with Laporta. So I think it's a wait and see with those guys and see how they perform coming off these big injuries.
All right, I'm going to go with one. I'm going to open up a little Pandora's box to see what you guys think on this. We got a couple questions left about the Lions before we head to the Super Bowl. Is it time for the Lions to think about maybe in the later rounds trying to draft a quarterback?
Dan, I'll let you go first on this one, man.
I never have a problem in the later rounds drafting a quarterback. Like if you want 5th, 6th, 7th round, you want to get a quarterback to develop and have as a backup, and maybe down the road, maybe that guy develops into something. Whether he takes over for Goff or you can use him to trade to get something. I have no problem against that. Okay. But if you're talking like higher rounds, like a 2nd or 3rd round, absolutely not. Like it's just so funny because I have to be a Goff defender all the time, and he's just totally not my style of quarterback. But I like Goff. I'm happy with Goff. I'm happy with how he's performed, and I'm not looking to replace him anytime soon.
Brian?
Yeah, you have to, right? I mean, it's obvious. You have a lot of money locked into that one position, and I know Dan said he played at an elite level this year. Sooner or later, though, man, like you have to. It's the most important position in sports. If you're not getting elite play, like I know you said top 5, I'll disagree with that, but like to me, that
bear it out.
So but as Dan knows, stats can be a little bit misleading. Like to me, it goes back to this: games on the line. There's 1 minute left. Like, how many guys would you want ahead of Jared Goff as your quarterback to have the game-winning drive? Like, that to me is an unfortunate realization that I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that are ahead of Jared Goff. So that's all. So, yes, I don't think there's any harm anytime really drafting. Like, if it's the best player available, especially, and you got a guy that you think you can develop, could be a but again, it's somebody you're hoping that someday is going to play at an elite level.
Well, I'm just saying I don't think it's like a Green Bay Packers situation where they drafted Aaron Rodgers to replace Brett Favre, even though Brett Favre had a couple years left. They drafted Jordan Love, even though Aaron Rodgers still had quite a few years left. Like, I just don't see the Lions doing that. Like, and I don't think they should do that.
Yeah, I don't think that. They've got such other pressing needs in the opening round. I couldn't disagree more. All right, last Lions question for each of you. I know I'm a longer suffering Lions supporter than you guys are. My first recollection of watching the Lions was back in 1970. So I go back 56 years. Is Dan Campbell the best coach the Lions have ever had as a head coach?
I mean, if you want to go, yes, I'm going to say yes. I am going to say yes. Like, it's not fair. It'd be really, yes, I do. Like the Wayne Fonts thing is like Wayne Fonts was the winningest for a long time, but he was also the losingest, right? As a Lions coach. So yeah, I'm going to say Dan Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to argue against it. It's not really, he didn't really have a bar to exceed, but
no,
I would have to say at least in my lifetime, it's definitely Dan Campbell.
Wayne was something else, man. Detroit was so stacked with talent, and then Mike Utley got hurt, and then Eric Andelsek got run over, cutting his grass. I mean, you can't make this stuff up sometimes. But.
No.
All right, let's switch gears. We're joined tonight by Dan Murphy and the coach Brian Barnes from Michigan Sports and Entertainment. Follow them on Facebook. They have great shows. They get great guests lined up. I really enjoyed the last one you had with Tony Paul, or one of the last ones. That was such a fascinating interview. Follow them on Facebook. Such great content. The big game is here, guys. Seattle right now, as of tonight, is a 4.5 point favorite. I think the over-under is 45.5. I'm going to go first I want to get your opinion. You talk about quarterback play. I don't know what it is. I love the moxie of Drake May, especially in the blizzard in the fourth quarter, taking it upon himself to call that play to secure the win. Give me your thoughts first on Drake May versus Sam Darnold.
Jared Goff wouldn't have made that play though. I tell you that the bootleg rollout for the first down. So, but yeah, Drake May has been incredibly impressive in his second year with the Patriots, and man, he's one of the up and comers for sure. And like you said, man, to take it upon himself. To call his own number on that play in the snow, and everything on the line. Because if he doesn't make that play, man, the coaches are all over him. Like, what the hell are you doing? And for him to call his own number and just see the whole field like that and make that play, man, it shows you, man, he's well beyond his years. Like he's a good one.
Yeah, his development in a short time has been incredible, and he just seems like a perfect fit for Vrabel and everything. Like they get along great, head coach, quarterback, and because I had some questions when he got drafted, because I remember he was a pretty young guy, like he was like young for his age, or his class, and to see him again play at this level so quick, I didn't see it coming. But again, it's a great organization. They do things right, and they've got a shot to get another Super Bowl. Which, if you would have told me, Lou, both of these teams would be back at it in the Super Bowl before the Lions, right? I'd say no way. And so I don't know if it should give us hope as Lions fans that like, okay, it can still be done, or mere frustration, like, gosh darn it, how did these two do it again, right, before the Lions did?
And I want to switch to Sam Darnold because I was one of the many that were not believers, and I think I fell victim to, number one, where he got drafted, and number two, I am not a USC fan at all, and I just think, you see the hype train that they give to their quarterbacks. I mean, you look at you could go down the line at some of them that have never materialized anything, and he was a borderline bust, but the teams that he was on, the Jets, the Panthers, I mean, it didn't start out well. But he's a good dude, and I'm happy for him, especially that he doesn't play for the Vikings, so we don't have to see him twice a year. But what do you think about Sam Darnold and the resurgence, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like he was picked over third overall by the Jets, and this is his fifth team, and that's crazy. Yeah. And I mean, and the most recently, right, he got booted out of Minnesota for JJ McCarthy, and that decision, you could argue, cost the Vikings general manager his job. Right, because if he's not in the Super Bowl, doesn't play at a high level, maybe they're not thinking that. But yeah, like anything, like the quarterback position is still one that it's one of the most difficult positions to play in all sports, right? And people develop and players develop at different times, and some is not as quick as others. Like we just said, Drake May, like look at that, what he's done in his second year. Sam Darnold wasn't at that level, and he's playing at that elite level right now. And so yeah, it's good to see for him personally, and he's a fun quarterback to watch. And he's got some guys around him that's fun to watch him get the ball to. Jackson Smith and Jigba, obviously, and Kenneth Walker the third. So they have Smith and Jigba have a nice little partnership going on, and it's fun to watch. They're a fun offense to watch, and I never really thought that before, even during their Super Bowl years. This is a pretty fun group to watch.
Dan, you remember his first game as a pro?
It was Monday Night Football against the Lions.
Boy, he looked like he was the second coming of Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, and Tom Brady all rolled into one. Detroit tends to make Pro Bowlers out of quarterback, all pros out of quarterbacks.
I believe, if I remember correctly, the Lions got a pick six off of them to start the game. Yeah. And you're thinking, oh, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be a great year for the Lions. And then pretty much from that point on, it was just a complete disaster for Detroit.
So, Dan, one of the things that as crazy as this may sound, I think New England's defense is still a little bit underrated, especially coming into this, because we hear a lot about the hype about, the Seattle defense. And I know it was a blizzard and they played Stidham, but I still think this New England defense is one you got to be reckoned with, and I don't think they get enough credit.
I agree with you, and I thought that was a big aspect when Vrabel took over for the Patriots. I'm like, man, it ain't going to take long. I didn't think it would be this quick, but I knew it wouldn't take too long for Vrabel to get the Patriots up and going again, because he is an incredible coach and one of the best defensive minds in the game. But he's going up against another one of the great defensive minds in college football, Mike Macdonald, who's done an incredible job with Seattle, the former Michigan defensive coordinator back in 21. And man, his rise has really been incredible. And he's just done a fantastic job with Seattle. And it's funny because when Brian and I previewed the playoffs going in. We both thought it was going to be, maybe the Bills and the Rams. We kind of went with the top quarterbacks, the top offenses. But in the back of our minds, we thought, maybe this might just be one of those years where it's just the defenses that are going to hold strong and carry these teams. And sure enough, it's the Patriots and Seahawks, two of the best defensive teams in football.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, you look at what you talked about Seattle with all the playmakers they got. I don't know if they've seen a defense this good yet in the playoffs. Have they?
No, that's a great point. And, the player I want to highlight, there's two in particular. Clavon Chason at linebacker is a dude, and man, is he fun to watch. He's had an awesome year, and I think he's got a sweet football name, right? But like he's awesome to watch. And the other one that stands out more than anything, and he was named a Pro Bowler, Christian Gonzalez at cornerback. And he was named a Pro Bowler even though he didn't have an interception this year. I think he's the type of cover corner, though, that the Lions were hoping, or are still hoping, that Terrion Arnold's going to be. Right? Like that's, to me, should be the expectation. Like if the Lions were getting Christian Gonzalez type play out of Terrion Arnold these last couple of years, maybe we're feeling different about their defense too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But he's playing at that level. And you're right. This is an extremely high level and our extremely elite defense. And keep in mind too, there's an extra week of preparation going into the Super Bowl because of that 2-week period, right? Like, so you're not going to tell me that all those coaches aren't watching all that film even more and getting those guys ready. I mean, they're going to be ready. Sam Darnold might be,
Brian, not sorry to cut you off, but that leads me to believe this might be a real low scoring defensive game.
Yeah, even though I just got done talking about like the high level of quarterback play these guys have been having, like they're still like first year quarterback, like first year NFC championship guys, and then conference championship guys, and now first year Super Bowl guys. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to that, and maybe they do come out relying on the running game and not in the hands of the quarterback. But that's why the chess match happens, and that's why you game plan, and it makes it a lot of fun.
And it's funny you say that, and I thought that was going to be the case really in both these games, because even in the championship games, again, my wife and I were having this conversation, and she says, "Who are you betting on in the AFC game?" I said, "I'm going with the Patriots because nobody's giving them a chance in Denver, even with Stidham." And I just, and Darnold the same way, and they've proven me wrong. I thought, okay, the big atmosphere, the bright lights, the Rams, the whole bit. I don't know. I mean, everybody's thinking a defensive masterpiece. Watch it be 38-35.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm going to probably stay away from the over/under bet on the Super Bowl, more novelty picks, which I'm going to ask you guys here in a little bit what your opinion is. All right, give me a key matchup between these two teams that could make the difference in this game. Dan, I'll go with you first.
Well, Brian, you brought up Gonzalez, and Gonzalez one-on-one with JSN. I'm sure he's going to follow him all over the field. Sometimes he'll stay on one side of the field depending on who they're playing, but I think in this one he's going to go wherever JSN lines up. It's going to be Gonzalez lined up on him, and I think that's the star matchup that I'm going to be looking for.
Coach, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to say the Seahawks run game against that Patriots defense, because Kenneth Walker III in the playoffs, right? He has 178 yards in those two games, and he's averaging close to 5 yards a carry. I know Zach Charbonnet's been out, but like he has stepped it up big time. And that, again, when you're able to run the football, it opens up your play action. It opens up so much for your offense. And to me, it's going to be that. If the Seahawks can establish the run, I mean, you could say this in any football game, but I think especially in this one, if they can run the ball against that defense, man, they're going to be in good shape.
Here's mine. I'm going to go off the grid a little bit. I'm going to go the coaching matchup. And the reason I say that is we see so many of the coaches right now are going for it on fourth down instead of kicking a field goal. And I'm wondering who's going to take that chance first to make that fourth down, going for it on fourth down in the red zone, or maybe right around the 35 or 40. Who's going to make that first mistake? Who's going to take the chance first? Because I got a feeling that could be the difference in this one. I don't know. It's just a feeling. Who's going to have more moxie? Who's going to stay more traditional, for lack of a better word? What do you think?
I was going to say that's a great one, because, during the regular season, a lot of times when it doesn't work, there's some criticism, but it gets glossed over because it's the regular season. But when things happen in the playoffs, especially this game, If it doesn't work, man, those guys are going to hear about it. Just like Sean Payton's hearing about it for what happened in the AFC Championship game, right? Yeah. And he's not going to be able to live that down because it didn't work. If they go up 10-0 in that game, not saying they win, but like, holy heck, it's a different. Everything is different. Things are called differently on both sides of the ball for both teams.
And I think it's one of those things that as head coaches, you got to recognize the style of game that's taking place. I think it's going to be more of a defensive battle. I think points are going to be at a premium. You got to take those field goals when they're there. You got to take the points when they're there. Now, if it's a high scoring, you're going back and forth, it's touchdowns. Like, yeah, maybe you got to go for it on a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2, because if you kick a field goal, there's a good chance the other team's going to come right back and score a touchdown on you. So you got to match them score for score. But in a game like this, where I think it's going to be a defensive battle, you got to take the points where you can get them.
And guys, I said this Saturday on my show about analytics in basketball, and it holds true with football and baseball for that matter. I just, I'm trying not to be, the old man get off my lawn kind of a person, and I'm trying to get with the times, but I just can't. Maybe it's because we got bitten in the ass with Dan Campbell not kicking that field goal against the 49ers in the championship game. I just don't get it, and I don't. You guys hit the nail on the head. The playoffs, you got to take the points. You got to, and shooting the 3-pointers all the time instead of going to the hole, and then, swinging for the fences instead of playing small ball. It all wraps into this. That's why I'm really keeping an eye on this coaching matchup and the decisions they make.
Well, you bring it up. Like, I think there's a lot of other factors that go into it too. Like I talked about the flow of the game, if it's a high scoring game or a low scoring game, but I also think it depends on your personnel. And I thought this hurt the Lions a lot. When Laporta went down for the Lions, the Lions continued to go for it on 4th down. He was one of their key guys on 4th down, because either a lot of your 4th downs that you're going for, it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3. It's a lot of play action. That's where Laporta and your tight end steps up big for you. And Laporta and Goff had incredible chemistry and would come up with a lot of those 4th downs. When he was gone, and then with the first game was against Philly, they went 0 for 5 on 4th down against Philly. And you got to have an understanding of your personnel. And when you guys start having injuries, or you don't have the guys that maybe are capable of stepping up big on those 4th down situations, like, you got to take the points when they're there. And you got to understand the flow of the game, but you got to understand your personnel as well.
Lou, if you don't mind, the one that always stands out to me when it comes to like those decisions and how like Dan's talking about game script and game flow and like the time of the game, and it's not an NFL game, but the 2007 BCS National Championship game, Florida and Ohio State, and Florida was starting to take over early on. And if you remember, Ohio State went for it, or they had a fake punt, or they went for it on 4th down early. It was still in the first half, and Florida stopped them and then went and scored. Like, what that told me right there is like Jim Tressel and those guys at Ohio State knew, like, hey man, like we can't do anything right now. Like, we're in trouble, so we got to take this chance. Like, there is a sense of that. Like, if you're struggling and you feel like, hey, my team needs a spark, and we think we can get these guys because our scoring opportunities are going to be limited, you might see it. You know what I'm saying? But back to Dan's point, it just depends on how that game is going on. Like, sometimes I feel NFL coaches, like you said, Lou, have gotten a little bit reckless, and it just seems to be more common going for it on 4th down when it might not be necessary.
And it may have cost Denver. It may have cost Denver a shot at the Super Bowl, because if they kicked the field goal, it would have been 10-0. And the game ended up 10-7 Patriots. So if they kick that field goal, who knows how that game and the changes in that game going forward, especially once the blizzard came in and everything that went down. Like, they may have not anticipated it being, what it was. But at the time, man, you got an opportunity to go up 2 scores. Man, that changed the whole game.
You can't tell me that they didn't know the bad weather was coming. I mean, sure. I listened to, Dan Schlereth was on Dan Patrick last week, and I listened to him talk about it, and he said, I had 2 weather people on my show, and they both said, 3rd quarter, the weather's going to turn to shit, and it did. And so, yeah, I 100% agree.
So even more, like, get the 2-score lead if you know weather's coming. Like, it's crazy. It was a really bad decision by Sean Payton.
Well, and I just got done, talking about, we just both got done talking about the quarterbacks playing at an elite level. Like, okay, Drake May, you're down 10 in a blizzard in Denver, right? Go win us this game.
Right. You're right. But again, that's why we're here and we're not Santa Clara right now, right? Getting ready.
It's true.
All right, boys, before I get your predictions, I want to give you my prop bets for the game, and see what you think of them. I like to take prop bets that will go positive money. For those that have watched my shows throughout the years, I do the Presley parlay picks, and most of them are teasers where it's negative money, but it's sure money. But for the Super Bowl, I like to change a little bit. So here's the ones that I've got. All right. I do this every year. Over 2.5 people attempting a pass is plus 175. What do you think?
Oh, geez.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's not terrible, right? I mean, for two first time coaches in the Super Bowl, they're going to let it all hang out, so to speak. You could get some trickeration like that. All right.
Next one is an interception to be thrown by a quarterback in the red zone is plus 330. I'm putting a pizza pie on that one too.
Not bad.
Yeah, I'll even up it. I'll say it'll be Sam Darnold that throws it.
All right. A successful 2-point conversion is plus 300, 3-1 on your money on that one. That's a tough one.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially because I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting one, and the odds have gone down, which I kicked myself. I should have took it the minute I saw it last Monday. A field goal or extra point attempt to hit a goalpost. It was 7.5 to 1. Now it's down to plus 600. That's too good to pass up. I put a sawbuck on that, which nowadays is half a pizza pie. But so that's plus 600. I can't go without trying that.
No, that's a fun one. What's the weather going to be like in Santa Clara next Sunday? We don't know yet, but
I don't know. I have to go to San Diego Friday and come back Sunday, and it's going to be 75 there. But
I think it'll be.
I don't know if it's going to be that nice there. It's quite a bit further north, but
right. Okay.
And then I did this last week for the championship games, and I didn't win on this one. I'm doing a parlay for each quarterback to throw an interception is 2-1. You get on your money back with these defenses.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's fair. Yeah.
Okay. And then, all right. So those are my teaser bets or my prop bets. I mean, I'm not going to go with the coin flip and, that kind of thing. That's I'm going to stay away from that one this year. So, all right, boys, I'm going to put you on the spot. A Wednesday night prediction. Who's going to win the big game? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first. Man, it's a tough one, man. I really think this is a toss-up. I really do. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I don't like putting my money on Sam Darnold, but I just love Seattle altogether as a team. I think they're a better team than New England, and I think they've been one of the dominant teams all year. They continue to show that in the playoffs, and I just love what Mike McDonald has been doing with that team. I just think he's a fantastic coach, and I think they're going to find a way to shut New England down and make enough plays offensively to get it done. I'll say Seattle 20, New England 14.
Coach?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a toss-up. I think Seattle's just better. I think they're better across the board on both sides of the football. I'm looking at like Seattle 23, New England 10. I think they cover. I think they cover handedly. I think they're the better team, and they'll control the game for 4 quarters.
Well, I guess I'm going against the grain with you fellas. Something about Drake May in that game last week really impressed me. I don't think Seattle has seen a defense this good yet. So it's going to be a 1-score game. I'm definitely taking the points and the Patriots. I'm going to go with Seattle winning this one 20-17. Or I'm sorry, New England winning 20-17. Okay. So there we go. Yeah. All right, guys, we got a few minutes left. We talked about it at the top. Spring training is right around the corner. A week from today, they report to Lakeland, the Tigers. I know in 6 days they report to some of the other facilities. I know looking outside here in Michigan, some places has got 10 feet of snow that are watching us. Other places we still got more snow we've had in years. But obviously, the big burning question, what are they going to do with Tariq Skubal? I'm going to go first and say they're not going to trade him. I think they're going to keep him, but I don't think they're going to sign him to an extension. Coach, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, there was a time at the end of the season going into the winter meetings where all the rumors started happening with the Mets and potentially the Dodgers, and all those names were thrown about. And I thought it was going to happen. I thought they were going to move on from him. And then when they signed Kenley Jansen, I think we all kind of believe, like, okay, like, you're not going to sign a veteran like that, for a closer or however he's going to work in the back end of the bullpen. You're not going to do that if you're not serious about at least trying to win this year. And I know sometimes fans are going to say, like, well, it doesn't look like, we don't know yet. Are they all in? Are they not? If they're not all in, trade Skubal now. If they think their window and their championship roster, which Dan and I kind of think are really down the road, I still think, why make those moves in the bullpen? If you're not going to go for it. And so I still think, maybe not Skubal, but I still think there's a signing to happen at some point before the regular season starts. And so I think they're going to hold on to him for this year and then, give the best shot and, see what happens in the offseason.
Dan, what do you think? Your point that you brought up at the beginning of the show, I think a lot of it's going to play to the lockout that I am 95% thinking that we're not going to have baseball at the start of 27. But I think people are going to wait to find out what's going to become of that before they even sign Skubal.
Yeah, I mean, the lockout's coming. Like it's just a doomsday that looms ahead, over, entire baseball. We know it's coming. And if you look around baseball, you're not seeing a whole ton of long-term big contracts being signed, and especially in the American League. And today you saw Eugenio Suarez, third baseman, signed with the Reds for 1 year, $15 million. And I saw that just before we came on air, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what a perfect deal that would have been for the Tigers. Because if you look at what Detroit's doing right now, they're kind of setting everything up to be that they're kind of going for it this year with all these little 1 year deals. Flaherty's back on 1 year deal. Torres accepted the qualifying offer for 1 year, $22 million. It's a 1 year deal. Finnegan was a 2 year deal. So Kenley Jansen's a 1 year deal. Skubal is, you asked the question, do we think he's going to get traded? I don't think he's going to get traded at this point. I think they're going to keep him for 2026. But again, it's 1 year left on the deal. And there's so many of these guys are on 1 year deals. It's like they're going for it for this year. But, Brian talked a lot about on our podcast, like we think Scott Harris believes the core of this team is really in Erie right now with Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal. We saw some of the rankings that have come out. Those are two of the top 5 prospects, not just on the Tigers organization, in all of baseball. This is the best farm system the Tigers have ever had in my lifetime, and it's the best farm system they've had since the late 70s, which the core that they had then is the core that won the World Series in '84. So I think they're going for it this year, but I think their eyes are ahead of past the lockout when they got all these kids coming up from the farm system, and that's the time where I think they're truly going to go for it is after the lockout.
Well, guys, you bring up great points, and I think the American League is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a definite favorite. I mean, the story of Toronto last year was fun, and obviously I wanted to win them. I wanted them to beat the Dodgers, the new evil empire. But I just think it's wide open. To me, there's no team in the American League that stands out, that's head and shoulders above. The Yankees aren't. I think Detroit can hang with the Blue Jays. I think the Mariners may have been just a one-shot deal. I don't know. I definitely think they can win the Central.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely the favorites in the Central. But you bring up the American League. Who's gotten better?
I don't know.
Who's gotten better this offseason? The Tigers have stayed the same.
Yeah.
Like they brought everybody back. I mentioned all those guys, Torres, Finnegan, Flaherty, they're all back. Those were potential free agents that they brought back. And I know a lot of people were frustrated, including me. I wish they would have made, one more serious move to bring in a big hitter. But they made moves. It was just bringing back their own guys. A lot of these other teams, you look at Seattle, they're losing guys. These contenders are all losing guys where the Tigers have stayed the same. So it is very interesting, especially when you brought up the Yankees. Like I look at the Yankees and the Red Sox. I know the Red Sox went out and got Ranger Suarez, a pretty good starting pitcher, but they lost Bregman. So to me, it's kind of a wash. And the Yankees really haven't done anything. It's really really surprising to not see any of the big dogs in the American League, especially the big markets, just not really do a whole lot.
Yeah, and again, to reemphasize our belief that Scott Harris, I think the Tigers are ahead of where he thought they'd be. I do. And look at their drafts, and he was criticized for not drafting Wyatt Langford, who was a major league ready prospect and outfielder with the Rangers, and instead they took a high school kid, Max Clark. And the following year they followed it up with high schooler, Bryce Rayner, right? Yeah. So like to me, like you're drafting guys out of high school knowing it's gonna take a while for them to develop. And so I think right now it's almost like they're playing with the house money to a degree. I think I just think they're ahead of where they thought they would be. But then again, to Dan's point, man, when you get an opportunity like this, and like Lou, like you said, the American League is wide open. Like you almost just go for it. Yeah. Then let's just go take it, right?
So we talk about the lockout, and it reminds me a lot of 1994 when they stopped the season. But really back then the doomsday wasn't there like it is now, a year in advance. I mean, we didn't think, I can remember it. Detroit they were starting to become really bad. Mm-hmm. They were at the end of that run. In 91, they were decent. 92, they were okay. Then they started to fall off. But you didn't see that coming as far out as you do now. And it's just a unique situation where I've never seen both sides put their feet, draw a line in the sand like they have. And the baseball union still, in my opinion, is the strongest union of any union in the country. And, now you've got owners that are bickering, and I just think it adds a little to that too. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent here.
No, Lou, I think it would be catastrophic if there's no, right? Because baseball is cool again. Like we just had an awesome World Series and globally, you're about to have the World Baseball Classic again coming up, and people are excited for that. I mean, the stars they have now are comparable to, you might have, again, like it might be hyperbolic, but like Shohei Ohtani might be the best player of my lifetime that I've seen for what he does on the mound and in the field and at the plate. I mean, it would be catastrophic if something were to happen, if they were to not play games next year.
I'm with you. I hesitated on crowning him the best player that I've ever seen, because obviously I've watched a lot more than you guys have. But I mean, the things he can do, the difference maker that he is, pitching and hitting. I used to think Dave Winfield was that kind of guy before he got hurt, but he's nothing close to Shohei. And Dan, I don't know what you think. I want to ask you this: do we see Max Clark and Kevin McConaughey? Do we see them in Detroit this summer?
I think there's a good chance if McGonigal has a great spring, he could be the opening day shortstop.
Okay,
I can see that being a chance. I think Max Clark's a little bit further off.
Okay,
but McGonigal is just he's a hitting phenom. I mean, he's the best hitting prospect they've had in my lifetime. Like I said, probably going back to the late 70s, they've had a hitting prospect of this caliber. He is incredible. He is the one that I would have my eye on in spring to see if he can earn a starting spot. But either way, I think both of them will appear on the Tigers major league roster this season.
All right, guys, we got about 5 minutes left. I always like to ask people this. First time on the show. Dan, I'll start with you first. What's the first Tigers game or first? Let me rephrase that. What's the first professional sporting event you ever went to?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it would have to be a Lions game at the Silverdome. I think it was Lions Packers, maybe 93, 94, sometime in that time period. But when I think of like my first professional games. Like I can't remember the exact game, but what strikes my memory is we always went to the home opener. And I think it was right around that early 90s, mid 90s, where we would go to the home opener every year for the Lions, and we'd tailgate at the Silverdome. And man, it was those are some really special memories of my childhood. It's going with my dad and my brother, and nice. Different people would come along with us as well, different times. But the tailgating at the Silverdome was really some special childhood memories for me.
Coach, what about you?
Man, I remember it clearly because it was the first time I had a non-alcoholic beverage, and my dad Potentially could have gotten in trouble by the cops, but it's all good now. God rest his soul. 1984, Game 3 against the Kansas City Royals to clinch a spot to go to the World Series. I was 6 years old and sat in the bleachers in the upper deck, and I remember it to this day. And we'll never forget it. First time I had a ballpark hot dog, and it was quite an experience, Lou. It was fun.
Yeah, I was sophomore at Central Michigan when on that game. I can remember it was a Friday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. Well done. Yeah.
My first game was, I can remember it as it was yesterday, August 8th, 1974. I went to County Stadium in Milwaukee because it was closer. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, so it was closer for us to go to Green Bay or Milwaukee. And I watched the Tigers and the Brewers. Woody Fryman had a no-hitter going into the 8th inning, and he ended up a one-hit shutout. But the big thing of that game, it was Ron LaFleur's first game as a pro.
Wow.
Struck out 4 times. There was 8,000 people at County Stadium. We walked in, me and my mom and dad and my brother, and we got third-row seats behind the Tiger dugout.
That's a good story.
Well, Lou, can I ask you? You brought up what all of our first game was.
Yeah.
What's your favorite game that you ever attended?
Oh man.
Oh wow. You know what? It would have to be Game 4 at the Silverdome of the 1989 or 88 NBA Finals against the Lakers. We were 4 rows from the top in the Silverdome. And obviously they didn't win the championship that year. They lost in 7 to the Lakers. But it was the summer before my last semester of college, and I was working a summer job, and I got home that night about 10 o'clock. It was a Monday, again in the UP. My brother and a couple buddies had duffel bags packed, said, we're going. We're going to stay in Boyne City the night before, then we're going to go to Detroit, try to get tickets, and we're going to go. So we drove down to Pontiac with no tickets and ended up getting tickets for $10 a piece to watch an NBA Finals game. And the place was sold out. It was a lot of fun. So much fun. All right, last question, guys. We got to wrap it up. We talked about the Super Bowl. What's going to be, Dan, I'm going to go with you first again. What's going to be your Super Bowl dish on Sunday night?
Oh man, so my sister always has a Super Bowl party, so we always go over there. So my thing that I always bring over is cheese and crackers. So I always make a real elaborate cheese and cracker tray. Put pepperoni, salami, different cheeses, all that, some specialty mustard and all that. I kind of go all out with it. So that will be my dish that I'm bringing to the party.
Coach, what about you?
Well, when my girls were younger, we used to do all the fun, like the party stuff, and would play all the games and whatnot and get a bunch of ice cream. And now my girls are older and either not interested in the game or they're up at college. So I don't know what we're going to do. I'm a big chips and salsa guy, so that'll be my dish of choice, and that we'll keep it at that.
I think it's going to be chicken wings for me. Chicken wings and potato chips, probably.
Not bad.
But the thing is, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of the game because I have to get up for work at 3:15. And so usually by 9 o'clock, especially, like I said, I've got a bang trip to go on Friday and come back Sunday. And it's going to be a lot of time in the plane. So I'll be keeping an eye on the game. But,
So Lou, I'll say this, man, like usually, like I said, I'll go to a Super Bowl party every year. And usually I'm the guy that's like really focused on the game and kind of annoyed by the people around me, or, oh man, I got to get my square. All I got to do, if this team gets a safety, I get my square, and I'm always usually annoyed by, the noise around me because I'm focused on the game. This might be one of those years where I'm a little bit more into the party, into the game, maybe, because just, it should be a good game, but man, there's not as many, storylines or intriguing aspects to this game that there's been in some of the past years. So I might enjoy the party a little bit more than the game this year.
Well, guys, I appreciate you taking time out to be with us tonight on the show. This has been an absolute treat. Tell us what you got going on with Michigan Sports and Entertainment.
So yeah, I mean, you can follow us on Facebook. That's where everything that we do, you can get on our Facebook page. But we're also on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We do a lot on TikTok. Our username across pretty much our socials are Mich Sports ENT, MICH Sports ENT. But if you just type in Michigan Sports Entertainment, it should come up wherever you go. But Brian and I do a couple different podcasts inside the coach's office, which is a little bit more of a Detroit sports show, similar to what you got going on here, Lou. And then we also do a pretty interesting show called the College Football Retro Show, where we go back and we review old games from the past, usually in the 90s, early 2000s. We kind of have a focus on Michigan. Every once in a while, we'll branch out and do some SEC games and things like that. But hey, most recently, we did the Michigan Penn State from 1999, which was Tom Brady had 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter to bring them back. Where it's kind of the game where Tom Brady first kind of really became Tom Brady. So we do some pretty cool things like that, and we've got different podcasts. And Lou, as you mentioned earlier, we have some of your content on our page as well. So yeah, if you could give us a follow, Michigan Sports Entertainment, you should be able to find us all over.
Well, Coach, thanks for coming on tonight. Enjoy the game Sunday, and keep up your great work too as well.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having us. It was a lot of fun.
All right. For the coach, Brian Barnes, Dan Murphy from Michigan Sports and Entertainment, Captain Lou, thanking everybody for welcoming us into your homes, on your computers, your iPhones, however you watch us around the world here on the Captain Lou Sports Network. Enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody. Be safe. Keep the faith in the Lions. Next year, we'll be back. It's going to be our year. I say that every year, but I got a good feeling about it. Until next time, Captain Lou saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. So long.